I'm Janeane, and this is KUCI 88.9 FM in Irvine, and this is Get the Funk Out. So my next guest is joining me from Bulgaria. Is that correct, Sophie?
That is correct.
And I want to hear you pronounce your name because it's really beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, my given name is Sophie Yotova, but I found Americans kind of have a hard time pronouncing that. So any way you do it is really fine.
Okay. All right. So I'd like to start off by reading what you sent me because you have such an interesting background, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
You are a Bulgarian food artist, TEDx speaker, certified eating psychology coach, and the founder and CEO of Foodie Boulevard, a global social enterprise that teaches kids and grown-ups to become real-life superheroes by using food as a superpower on and off the dining table. Now, you went through, and I'm not going to share so many more details, you had your own series of traumatic personal events, and you left your flourishing corporate career in IT, and you jumped into becoming a social entrepreneur. So because my show is all about transformations and overcoming, would you like to share a little bit about how something really hard turned into something really great?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, for me, it's very important to talk about this because for many people, personal trauma is something that defines them, but in a negative way. And like, you know, I always like to say that this stuff lives your life instead of you, and it should be the other way around. So
Yes.
for me, everything started with you know, the fact that I've struggled with an eating disorder since I was a teenager, and that defined me for well over a decade. It controlled my social life, my sense of worth, my self-confidence, and it sounds pretty trivial because many people do struggle with similar things, but the thing is, stuff like that limits you. And for me, everything, all hell broke loose when I lost my grandmother to cancer in 2015, and she was diagnosed a week before my birthday.
Oh my
and
gosh.
Then a month after my birthday, we buried her. It was a super rare type of cancer. Nobody had it coming. And like everything got so much worse for me because this was the first close person that I ever lost. And I didn't know how to process death. Like I didn't know how to maneuver in this weird state of not knowing how to process these emotions. And this is how my eating disorder got really bad. And I realized, you know, food is something, you can't quit food. You can't quit alcohol, you can't quit drugs, you can't quit addictive behaviors that don't play a role in your life, but food, it's there every single day for the rest of your life. And unless you find a way to make your relationship with it harmonious, it's gonna eat you up alive. Right. And I'd had enough. Like I'd viewed food as my worst enemy for such a long time, and I decided, okay, maybe I should just try something different. And instead of afraid, I became curious. And gradually, I started playing around with it, and I realized that there is so much more to it than what meets the eye. And throughout the whole time, I had my steady job. I was, you know, climbing up the corporate ladder. I became the youngest senior technical writer in my organization in the whole world. And amazing. From the outside, I seemed like the epitome of success. Mm-hmm. But on the inside, I was broken. I was working really hard to become excellent at something that I hated, like many people do, mm-hmm. because this is the way we are conditioned to believe that success looks like, which, you know, it didn't for me, because soon after I suffered a miscarriage, and then a bunch of crazy, you know, physical symptoms started happening. Like I started getting spontaneous bruises, my gums were bleeding, like things went just crazy.
Why was that? Why was that happening?
Well, 10 doctors couldn't say. It took me 9 months and a bunch of panic attacks and a scary burnout when my brain literally would not function, like it would not tell my body what to do, to finally admit in front of myself that I was winning other people's battles and I was not living in unison with my values, my sense of, you know, purpose. And that this just couldn't go on like that. And I just, I left. I left a steady career, a steady paycheck, and I jumped into something that most people around me still view as like just, oh, she must be cooking all day long and just posting pretty pictures online, right?
Oh,
Like
no.
that's how many people view what I do. But the fact that I have those weird features, I call them, like I used to call them bugs, because I also don't have sense of smell. Like I've never in my life.
Ever? All your life?
Never. Nothing. Zero. No flowers, no perfumes, no like public restrooms, none of that. And the combination between those two things actually made up this unique lens that empowers me to view food outside the box. And I never approach it as a cook or a chef. I viewed it as an artist. And to me, food is like a journey of self-discovery and a journey of growth and a healing. And, it can be so many more things than we are conditioned to believe. I think that got way too long, but I hope I managed to answer your question.
No, it's really interesting to hear your journey. What I'm really blown away by is you managed to take a different step on your own. You figured this out on your own.
Well, I've always been I've been excellent at playing an extrovert because I needed to find ways to fit in. But I've always been deeply introverted, and I've always spent a lot of time in my head, exploring my feelings and my reactions and my yearnings and all of this. And I realized that people around me and my environment and my generation, I'm a millennial. So, there are certain things that, need to take place in order for certain other things to, go on in our life. But to me, none of this was making any sense. I made all the right steps. I got an excellent education. I, started living the grown-up life, making my first steps in the real world, working and this and that. But it wouldn't give me any sense of fulfillment. I was making crazy money and I was broken. I was waking up in the middle of the night, sweating and, living for weeks, chronically tired. And this didn't make sense.
Right.
So I was like, okay, I can either kill myself doing this because I do have history of mental illness in my family.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't risk going there. I was just too afraid. I wanted to be happy and I'd forgotten what it feels like to be unconditionally happy and feel simple joy. So I just did my own thing, and I'm lucky to have my partner support me tremendously throughout this transformation. And I stopped talking to almost all the people around me because they just wouldn't give me the space to be vulnerable and to say, this does not work. I need a change.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't have people that are not on your team in your life because it becomes very toxic. And I'm an introvert as well. People might think I'm not, but I have always been in my head as well. And sometimes if you just give yourself space and you move away those toxic people and you can hear your inner thoughts and think about things. Now, I want to share with people how we met, because we're both in the Yale class, The Science of Well-Being, with Dr. Laurie Santos. And I saw your pictures of your food art, and I thought, this is no hobby. This is somebody with a lot of intelligence, with a lot of experiences. You are so creative.
Oh, thank you for saying that. As far as creativity goes, it was actually a few weeks after my miscarriage when I went back to work. And it was my boss at the time who told me, we're having this keynote, this American speaker, he's a graffiti artist, he's coming to talk, you should go. And at the time, I was really apathetic and I didn't really find anything meaningful to do other than just work, but I went there. And this guy, he happens to be Eric Wall, he's remarkable. He's somebody who teaches people that creativity is attainable and that you can actually cultivate that through different kinds of practices. It's a muscle that you can exercise, and every single person by design is creative. We just, we get funneled in these, traditional life paths that kill this
Definitely.
creativity. And I would go back to Sir Ken Robinson's, TED Talk, how school kills creativity. And I gradually started literally exercising my creativity muscle every single time I enter the kitchen, because I do develop recipes for a living. I do teach people, how to cultivate healthy habits in a fun way. But every time I start cooking, it's like a creativity workout, because I get in the kitchen and I figure out what I'm gonna come up with as I go. I don't follow recipes. I never cook the same thing twice. And I come up with my own interpretations of the mood that I'm having at the moment, and the stuff that I have in my fridge. And I realized, okay, so just like you can cultivate discipline and resilience through martial art, you can actually cultivate creativity through being playful with food.
Oh, yeah.
So that's how it all began. And I've just continued doing that without even thinking about it. It's become something natural. It's a part of my operating system for life at this point.
And what a great way to build optimism and positivity in your life. How are things with you with the quarantine and COVID?
Initially I was scared because, everybody is going through something that nobody knows the extent of.
Yes.
I was terrified because my practice, something that I spent 2 years building, was wiped out in a day. I couldn't do live courses, training sessions, none of that. And at the same time, I was weirdly empowered because, I've been doing what I do for 5 years now, almost. And I did not have the guts to step out of my comfort zone and try to build a global brand and, make a statement internationally and kind of, make my voice heard. So I was like, okay, so I'm either gonna be broke forever and not know how to move on,
yes,
or I'm just gonna pivot again,
yes,
and, make a whole new type of, lemonade with these crazy new lemons that nobody knows what to do with.
I love it.
Yeah. And I started thinking about, how I can move my work to the digital space. And I came up with a concept for an immersive digital experience that would allow people from around the world to be together at the same time in the comfort of their own homes and create edible art with me.
Fantastic. You are fantastic at pivoting, by the way.
I mean, I've been lucky enough to go through enough challenging things, manageable challenging things, to know that, impossible is nothing and you can take something from everything. So yes. I just let this stuff guide me into a new direction, because, the most important thing I learned from my corporate job was that chaos is inevitable and you either accept it or it breaks you. So
right. And it can definitely make you stronger.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I have this mantra that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that ever happened.
100%.
And you are a prime example of that, because you look at it as, okay, there's a path, an unknown path, and I think I'm going to check that out because there might be something good down that path.
Yeah.
You don't live in fear or hesitation.
I do every single day.
You do?
Every morning I wake up, torn by hesitation. Am I good enough? Is this worth it?
Sure.
Sometimes I wake up with the feeling that I shouldn't exist because nobody would, care about what I do. Especially when you try to transform a self-designed healing turned hobby, turned social enterprise. Like when you try to do that, money is not really pouring in. And when you are used to associating yourself, when you're used to getting your sense of worth from your paycheck, when this ends, it gets really scary because you lose your identity. And it took me almost 2 years to get out of this, overwhelming sense of uselessness that I was living with every day. But then, I gradually realized that all the weirdness that I have in me is unique. It's the only unique thing about me,
Mm-hmm.
and I can either embrace that and let it kind of make up this unique lens that allows me to create unique value for people like me, or it can break me.
Yes.
So, I chose to be curious. I chose curiosity over certainty. I chose creativity over conventionality, courage over comfort, all of this stuff that basically, lets you live whatever happens in your life.
If you think about all the artists that have ever existed, some are strange, weird, whatever people want to say about them, but they are brilliant. And I don't see one weird thing about you, because you're just, yes, we wake up in the morning and we doubt ourselves. Is this worth doing? This isn't making me any money, but you're intrinsically motivated to just go for it. And then the money will come later on. But right now you're so passionate that it becomes infectious. So this new endeavor, because of COVID, sounds really exciting.
Well, thank you for saying that. Honestly, I think this is something I personally needed, because one day I just went to the kitchen. I didn't feel like cooking because when I feel bad, I'm not in the mood to cook.
Right.
But I felt like just getting everything out of my head and transforming it into something observable, something that conveys my emotion and my thoughts and everything. Because the other thing I do is that I write. I have a degree in journalism, and like writing is an extension of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And like I knew so many people feel powerless, and the reality is that we're really not. There's a lot of things we can't control, but how we view the circumstances and what we make of them, it's up to us. And
Yes.
this was my way of generating simple unconditional joys within this madness. And I realized many people can actually use a bit of that, because on top of everything, during the quarantine, many people are required to cook so much more, and they are at the point where this has become such a chore that
It
they
is.
just like, yeah, exactly. And I thought, okay, maybe I can help with that. Maybe I can turn it into playtime.
Fun. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of adults, they lose their sense of creativity, or they think, oh, I was never creative. That's just not me. But it's so important to have that creativity in your life.
Exactly, because when you think of it, whether you're an accountant or a lawyer or a dancer, doesn't matter. Creativity is an operating system. You can solve so many problems when you approach them from a different perspective. And as long as you just remember that creativity is not just drawing or doing this or that, it's such a dangerous fallacy, because it robs us from a chance to have a competitive advantage in an era where when so many people are well educated, and we just need to differentiate ourselves in a different way. And I think creativity is one way to do that.
It's interesting. You're talking about this, and I'm thinking the people that are out of work right now, they need to stand out. And yes, you can have the MBA, you can have the graduate degree, but what else do you do? What else makes you a whole person? Are you a painter, a sculptor, writer like yourself? It's just, when I saw your pictures, honestly, I thought, this is so creative. Could you give your website for people who want to check out your work?
Absolutely. So if you go to foodieboulevard.com, you can see everything we've been doing in the past 2 months, because the English website is brand new. It's a baby website, so we're just still working on it. But yeah, if you search for Foodie Boulevard on Facebook and Instagram, you're gonna see us.
So tell me just a little bit more about your latest venture. Like, you probably have been doing a lot of Zoom things, and what's it been like?
Yeah, well, so I'm lucky to have a lot of people around the world whom I've met through, online workshops, like different Akimbo things by Seth Godin platform, and by, the Institute for the Psychology of Eating that I got certified a few years ago. So I have those people around the world whom I use their input to give me feedback on my thoughts. I have this concept, but in my head, and I'm not sure if it would work for, people in their own homes. So I've been really, conceptualizing a lot, and I'm ready to do actually a test run in the following weeks and see
Good.
if this new format is even viable, because honestly, I think whether this ends soon or not, we need new ways to have constructive fun at home. And I think this could be something that gives people space and excuse to be playful, to
Yes.
be creative, and to end up with a delicious and nutritious meal without even having that as an agenda in the first place.
Yes. And it's great for kids. It's great for,
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
parents to see that they can do this with kids. There are some positives in this whole situation.
Yeah,
I feel
plenty.
you found them.
Yeah. Well, like I said, initially I was really scared, and because when you're creative, you're not creative only for the good stuff. You also come up with the worst case scenarios
Yes.
of how your parents are gonna die and your siblings are gonna die and all
Yes.
of this stuff. And I thought this was dangerous, and I needed a distraction. So I focused on what I loved, and it guided the way.
It's amazing. What advice would you give to somebody who is a creative person? They're listening to your story and they're thinking, oh, I've been through really tough times. I have this idea, but everybody keeps knocking it down.
I would say don't feel guilty dedicating space and time to do what you genuinely love without having the promise of an immediate return on this investment. Because everything that I'm doing right now started almost a decade ago in a little studio that didn't even have a kitchen. And I started playing around with food because I was lonely. I had graduated from university, I had moved out of my home into the capital city, I had no friends, I had no money to spare, and I just needed to do something. And because my go-to, action is to always binge eat when I'm stressed out,
Sure.
I was like, okay, no, I'm not gonna binge eat all the time. Before I binge eat, to distract myself, I'm just gonna see what I can do with this food without a kitchen, without anything fancy. And this is how everything started. I didn't have a plan that I'm gonna get to where I am right now. So I would say to people, trust the process,
Yes. And play with your food.
and play with your food.
Give your website one more time.
So that's foodieboulevard.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for calling in.
Oh, thank you for having me. I had a blast.